A few years ago, I entered into matrimony with my husband, and my sister-in-law, Megan, became a new addition to my life. Initially, I harbored hopes of establishing a positive relationship with her. Unfortunately, it became apparent that I was the sole proponent of this sentiment. Megan exhibited an attitude of condescension towards me, seemingly valuing my presence solely for financial reasons. The stark revelation of Megan's true feelings occurred during a phone conversation when she callously informed me that she had control of my bank book. Her words implied that my wealth was essentially hers to use as she pleased, dismissing any notion of my financial autonomy. Frustrated, I asserted that my assets were unequivocally mine, prompting Megan to dismissively laugh off my conviction. Following this incident, I deemed reconciliation with Megan impossible and contemplated ways to retaliate. When I decided to implement my plan, Megan boldly asserted that, as a member of their family, I should consider everything I possessed as belonging to the family as a whole. This assertion left me dumbfounded, and I attempted to argue against it, emphasizing that I had purchased a car using my bank book. Megan, in her apparent triumph, boasted about her control over the bank book. However, seizing an opportunity during her moment of elation, I conceded the bank book and its contents, acknowledging her claim. Surprisingly, Megan retorted, insisting that I needed to relinquish my supposed ownership. Confused, I questioned her rationale, and she arrogantly pointed out that the bank book was in my name. Capitalizing on her inadvertent admission, I revealed that my name was Samantha, not the one in the bank book, and proceeded to unravel the backstory of my marriage to Walter. I explained the challenges faced by my mother-in-law in managing a metal processing business, and how my concern for her well-being led to the misunderstanding with Megan. I discovered that the two office workers had left the company after getting married. Additionally, the company faced challenges in recruiting new clerks, and there was a lack of clarity regarding the hiring policy. Recognizing this, I decided to offer a suggestion, drawing on my prior administrative experience. I expressed my willingness to provide support in any way possible, and my mother-in-law's expression brightened as she welcomed the idea. She assured me of appropriate compensation for my assistance. Encouraged by this conversation, I actively engaged in a supporting role within my father-in-law's company. My administrative skills were swiftly put to use, and my contributions were greatly appreciated. My husband, always considerate, expressed concern about potential stress from balancing household chores and work. However, I assured him that I intended to continue until a new clerk was hired, given the positive working environment. One day, my mother-in-law, in a moment of forgetfulness, mentioned that she needed to go to the post office but was preoccupied. Seizing the opportunity, I offered to go in her stead. During her brief absence, my sister-in-law Megan unexpectedly visited the office. Her warm greeting belied an ulterior motive, and she inquired about my employment status and compensation. I disclosed that I was receiving a minimal salary for my administrative role, a decision made for smoother tax and internal management purposes. Megan's interest seemed to peak at this point. Abruptly, she asked if I could share part of my salary with her. Confused, I questioned her intentions, and she clarified that she wanted me to give her a portion of my earnings. Taken aback, I hesitated, and Megan insisted on the request. Noticing a small safe on the table, she assumed it contained the money and reached for it. Panicking, I explained that the safe held important funds for the company, and it wasn't personal money. However, Megan, undeterred, argued that since the company belonged to our father, borrowing a bit of the money shouldn't be an issue. Despite my attempts to dissuade her, Megan persisted, forcibly opening the safe and taking out several bills. "I'll be taking this, give it back." "How am I supposed to explain this to everyone?" "That's your problem, and I'm sure you'll figure it out. Goodbye." Whistling, Megan made her exit. I stood there in shock, watching her leave the office. While I couldn't determine the exact amount, I didn't think she took that much. Right, I need to check what's left. As I referenced the ledger, I checked the contents of the safe. I was short $220. Megan took two $60 bills and three $17 bills. My heart raced as I quickly pulled out my wallet to check inside. However, there were only a few $10 bills. This isn't nearly enough. What should I do? Frustrated and desperate to remedy the situation, I felt lost. I considered telling my mother-in-law the truth, but the potential backlash and resentment from Megan made me hesitate. Fear of being targeted for revenge held me back from confessing everything. With no solutions in sight, my mother-in-law returned from shopping. "I'm back, Samantha. You seem down. Are you feeling okay?" She expressed concern for me. "Mother-in-law, there's something I need to tell you." I began steeling myself to reveal what had transpired. "You don't need to apologize. Megan has caused trouble multiple times before. It's been difficult handling her. I'm sorry she put you through this. About the money Megan took. If it could be deducted from my salary, I'd appreciate it." "Don't worry about it. I'll handle it as her mother, but I have a small request for you. The request was that when Megan comes to the office next time to record her voice. The method was simple. Use a smartphone or a digital recorder to ensure the atmosphere and conversation of the place were recorded. But why is such a recording necessary? Megan is an adult now. I believe she needs proper sanctions for what she did. Indeed, that's true. But to ensure she doesn't make wrong moves in the future, we need to show her the significance and impact of her actions. After the conversation, I decided to always wear a PX recorder. A week later, while the mother-in-law was out, Megan appeared in the office again. Hey, how are you doing, Samantha? Why are you here again? I nervously and discreetly operated the PX recorder to start recording. Actually, I'm a bit strapped for cash right now, so I thought I'd borrow some from you. I'm definitely not lending you money. Why? You lent it before, didn't you? That was you taking it without permission, but you managed to cover for it later, didn't you? That's because I couldn't say that I had informed the mother-in-law about what happened. If I were to explain in detail, Megan would surely leave immediately. In that case, it would be impossible to collect the evidence requested by my mother-in-law. I pondered my response carefully, choosing my words. You managed to overcome the situation, right? Can you lend me some money today? That's not possible. You married into this family, didn't you? Can you, as a daughter-in-law, go against the wishes of your in-laws? Her irrational argument surprised me. Well, enough with the excuses. Just hand over the key to the safe. Megan angrily slammed the desk. After the resounding noise, I heard my mother-in-law's footsteps from outside. What are you doing, Megan? Megan's eyes widened in shock. Oh, Mom, you haven't found a proper job, and on top of that, you're asking for money from your sister-in-law. Aren't you even a bit ashamed of your actions? Well, that's... What exactly are you thinking, Megan? Quit bugging me. I may not have a regular job, but I'm working part-time. I'm managing well at your age, still depending on part-time jobs for a living. Are you not embarrassed that your friends have established careers, gotten married, and started families? While you're still. It's my life, and I make my own choices. Besides, I have a decent partner for marriage. Megan became agitated and stormed out of the room. After she left, Samantha breathed a sigh of relief. Mother-in-law, I'm truly grateful. Don't worry. Now that she knows, Megan must be feeling some regret, reassured Samantha with a smile. However, Samantha's heart was still filled with anxiety. She was concerned that Megan might return with more demands. One day, when Samantha visited her mother-in-law's house, her mother-in-law showed her a piece of paper. Actually, I received an invitation to Megan's wedding recently. Without a doubt, it was a wedding invitation. The groom was listed as a man named Paul. I didn't recognize the name, but my mother-in-law seemed to know him and had a somewhat worried expression. Actually, Paul is the son of the factory manager. He's the factory manager's son. That's surprising. The factory manager had been someone my father-in-law had worked closely with for a long time and was highly respected. Is the factory manager discussing anything specific about his son's marriage? Well, the thing is, the factory manager seemed to have no idea about the marriage, and he was genuinely surprised when we told him. I see, but since it's already happened, we think it's best to accept it with a congratulatory spirit. There's no point in opposing it now, Mother-in-law reassured Samantha with a smile. Mother-in-law's expression seemed to have already accepted everything. After the wedding, my sister-in-law proudly told Mother-in-law, "See, I did have a proper groom. Congratulations, Megan." Mother-in-law smiled. Are you relieved now? More importantly, what are your plans for your new life together? What's your plan for the future? When Mother-in-law asked this with a serious expression, my sister-in-law seemed to be at a loss for words. Did you decide on a new place to live yet? That's something we'll think about in the future. I thought as much. For now, you should start by living in our apartment. We're planning to move to a new place, so we'll let you have this house. It's our final support for you. Find part-time jobs if you need to and make a living on your own. All right, I understand. Megan made a displeased look on her face. I was surprised by her attitude, considering she should be grateful for the house she received. Most of all, I felt sorry for my mother-in-law, who seemed peaceful and hurt. My husband Walter seemed to feel the same way, and he quickly made a suggestion to my mother-in-law. If that's the case, why don't you come live with us? It's okay. Actually, I've already discussed and decided on our new residence with your father. Are you sure that's fine? Well, just for the time until we move into the new house, can we leave some of our belongings at your place? Of course, that's fine. I felt relieved by his response. I had envisioned a tranquil life for my sister-in-law once she got married, optimistic that we would live in harmony. However, issues arose within just a week after she moved into her new house. The morning after my sister-in-law and her husband moved in, while we were getting ready for work, a sudden call from my mother-in-law interrupted our routine. Why are you calling so early, mother-in-law? Is something wrong, Samantha? I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to check something. Is Megan over there with you? According to my mother-in-law, she and my father-in-law had plans to stay in a hotel for a few days, taking a short break from their house. During this time, my sister-in-law and her husband were supposed to start moving into the in-laws' house, and the furniture and belongings that were there were temporarily moved to our house. Deeply concerned about whether her daughter's new life was on track, my mother-in-law decided to visit their house that morning to see for herself. However, when she did, she couldn't find any sign of her daughter or her husband. Since they had helped move some belongings from the in-laws' house to ours the previous day, she thought they might be staying with us. No, they did come back home. Then I wonder where they could have gone. Maybe they went on their honeymoon. That's a possibility. If you find out anything, please let me know. After saying that, she hung up. Later, I briefed my husband about the situation, but he had no specific information either. Feeling it wasn't necessary for me to be involved any further, I decided to wait quietly for my sister-in-law to get in touch. However, as the days went by, the lack of contact started to become concerning. My mother-in-law seriously began to consider filing a missing person report with the police. In the middle of discussing this decision in our living room, she paused her train of thought and calmly said, "I'll go get the bank book for a moment." "What for?" "I want to withdraw some money just in case. If we do end up having to search for them, there might be some expenses involved," she spoke with a worried tone. Understanding her forward thinking, I decided to wait silently in the room. Suddenly, from the next room, I heard her shocked voice responding to another voice. "What? I can't find the bank book!" In response to the voice, my husband Walter and I hurriedly went to the adjacent room. Inside, my mother-in-law looked flustered, checking the contents of the shelf. It was empty. "Did you keep your bank book here, ma'am?" I asked to confirm, and my mother-in-law nodded rapidly in a state of confusion. "Isn't this the shelf we moved last time?" Reflecting on the events, the move from her house had taken place in 2 stages. "But are you sure you kept it here?" "I'm certain." I had indeed kept it here, but Walter's skepticism bothered her, and a heated argument ensued as I stood bewildered, observing them. Suddenly, my smartphone rang, startling me in this tense situation. Reluctantly picking up the phone, I inquired, "What's going on? You sound upset." To my surprise, it was my sister-in-law on the line. Unable to conceal my shock, I raised a hand to interrupt the ongoing argument between my mother-in-law and husband. Walter and my mother-in-law, noticing the interruption, turned their attention to me. Their eyes fixed on me. They were at a loss for words. Returning to the phone, I questioned, "Is it you?" My sister-in-law's response was brief and seemingly annoyed. "If it's not me, who do you think it is? Where are you? We've been genuinely worried about you." Despite her casual dismissal of the question, I continued listening. She asserted that she had taken the bank book and used the money to buy a car, which was originally mine. Outraged by her self-centered remarks, I recounted the chaos unfolding at that moment. The bank book was missing, causing considerable trouble. My sister-in-law, seemingly shocked, asked, "Whose name is on that bank book?" I responded, "Could it be under my name?" She paused, and the sound of rummaging through belongings came from the other side of the call. She had mistakenly taken my bank book, thinking it was my mother-in-law's. However, more than a week had passed since Megan had the bank book, and it was likely that the money inside had already been withdrawn. In a flustered voice, Megan confirmed, "Wait, is this Mom's bank book?" Before I could react, my smartphone was snatched from my hand, and my mother-in-law, with an angered face, held it firmly. She had heard everything, including Megan's use of my bank book to buy a car. Outraged, she demanded an explanation. Megan, apologizing remorsefully, admitted to using company funds without permission and taking someone's bank book. The mother-in-law scolded her for their irresponsibility and insisted she come home immediately to explain. As the call continued, Megan's voice became frantic. A loud thud was heard in the background, and when questioned about her well-being, there was no response. After a few seconds, Megan's voice reached again, pleading for help at the convenience store parking lot. The call abruptly ended, leaving us to infer the situation. Megan had likely mistaken the gas for the brake while engrossed in the call. It appeared that she had driven the car into the convenience store shortly after the police reported Megan's car crashing into the store. Both Megan and her husband were in the car, luckily escaping serious injuries. However, the aftermath posed challenges. It became evident that my sister-in-law, Megan, did not have car insurance, resulting in the necessity to cover all repair costs out of pocket. The in-laws were furious, but to contain the situation, they rushed to fetch Megan immediately. Witnessing this, Megan's husband's parents couldn't conceal their anger, especially her husband's father, who, as the factory manager, directed harsh words at Megan. He questioned her entitlement, stating, Since you married into this family, do you think everything should just be provided for you? Ironically, these were the same words Megan had once said to me. Simply sharing the story with my mother-in-law wasn't the end of my retaliation. I made sure the manager, Megan's father-in-law, listened to a recording of Megan's words, leaving no room for denial. Subsequently, the manager issued even harsher words and ordered Megan and her husband to work diligently at the factory, surrendering all their earnings. Under the strict supervision of the manager, Megan and her husband had no choice but to comply. It seemed the best option for their financial situation. After these events, my in-laws returned home, closely monitoring Megan and her husband's daily lives. Working at the factory during the day, they lived under the watchful eyes of the in-laws after hours. Feeling the pressure from both ends, Megan ran into me at the factory, seeking help while in tears. Pleading, she said, "I'll do anything, please forgive me." I responded by asking her to work sincerely and repay the money she took from us. Witnessing Megan in such a desperate state, breaking down before me, evoked a mixture of satisfaction and sympathy. Her pitiable state, a result of her actions, was etched in my memory. Shifting gears, a significant change occurred in my life shortly afterward. I decided to resign from my administrative position upon learning about the office's hiring of new staff. Moreover, I discovered that I was pregnant. Wanting to focus on a new life with my baby and ensure sufficient rest, I embraced this turning point.